Hello everybody. Okay, so I'm back. It's been a little bit of a while since I did anything. Unfortunately, I've got tests and stuff on at the moment, so things are going to be a bit hectic. But I will try to keep doing what I'm doing. Okay, so a couple things before we get started. One, you may notice something different, and no, your eyeballs have not switched around in your head. In the first couple of videos I made, I'm really embarrassed about this. I had the mirrored setting ticked on my webcam settings, so everything was swapped around. I thought something was wrong when I was watching the videos back, but I didn't really notice until someone pointed it out. So I'm not a left-handed player. That wasn't what was going on. My webcam was just a bit messed up, completely my fault. But now it's all set, so it should look fine. Okay, so that's that. All right. So today, what we're going to be doing is a little bit of theory. Now don't let that scare you, don't run away screaming. I know theory is horrible and boring and stuff like that, but it's just really basics so that you understand a little bit more about the instrument and how it works musically, you know, in terms of actually knowing like where notes are and how the notes fit together and stuff like that. So if you've been playing for a while and you've never done any theory, I would really recommend you watch this. If you just started playing, I would super recommend that you watch this because it's going to really help you get a nice firm understanding of how everything fits together. Okay, so I haven't really planned out how we're going to go about this, so let's just see what I can remember from when I did music theory, which was quite a while ago. So this may be very disjointed and quite a bad lesson, so I do apologize in advance, but let's give it a try. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is put your guitar down because we're not going to use it for a little bit. I will towards the end of the lesson show you how some of the concepts that we've spoken about relate to the guitar, but for now I'm just going to grab a pen and paper, take some notes because it's really important that you get a good understanding of this, and if you write it down or I'm writing it down and showing you, that'll help. Okay, cool. So I took the liberty of printing some stave paper, you can see there. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Okay, in terms of playing guitar, you're not going to be reading music off of one of these, off of a stave, for the most part, unless you really want to. We might do some stuff in it, but probably not. We're going to be reading tablature, but we'll get there later. Okay, but traditionally, back in the old days, and still these days, I mean, like modern musicians and stuff, all read music off of this. This is the language that music is written upon. This is called the stave. These 5 lines, always 5 lines, are called a stave. And this is how musicians communicate with each other. This is how we write music. This is how we communicate with other musicians. If we have a musical idea or something, we write it down on here, because this is the language. I'm going to show you the language of music, which is really pretty cool. Okay, so first things first is you have your stave, which is your 5 lines. Always 5 lines, that's your stave. Then you have this little doodad over there, if you can see that, is called a treble clef. And I was thinking of how I can explain this, and it's a bit difficult, but basically it just tells you, you get 2 kinds of clefs. You get a treble clef, and you get a bass clef, which is not pictured here. I know how to draw a bass clef, but okay, let me try quickly, draw a bass clef for you. It's going to be really bad, so I do apologize. If I remember correctly, a bass clef, it's something like that. That's a bass clef. And basically all it is the treble clef is telling you that you're playing notes in the treble section of notes, and a bass clef is telling you that you're playing in the bass section of notes, i.e. the higher section is your treble section and the bass section is your lower section. So it's just a marker to indicate where, you'll see now, it indicates which where your notes are and stuff like that. I know that was a really bad explanation, so I am sorry, but you'll get it as we go. Okay, so that's your stave and your clef to tell you where, like which notes you're playing specifically, because you'll see that when we write notes in the spaces on the lines, it's important whether you're in the treble or the bass clef, because it's a different, if say you're on the first line over here, sorry, you can't really see that, if you're on the first line and you're playing the treble clef, it's a different note than if you're playing in the bass clef. But it won't really matter because we're only going to be playing in the treble clef anyway, because that's where the guitar has most of its notes, so we play in the treble clef. Okay, enough about the clef for now, let's just get into what some of the actual notes are. Okay, so in music we have 12 distinct notes. Actually, we have way more than that. There's like as many notes as you can possibly kind of imagine, because each note is just a specific frequency of sound, right? I'm not going to get into any physics here, but you know, sound is just a vibration. It's a specific frequency, and each note is a specific frequency. So we have 12. Okay, let me rephrase. We don't have 12 specific notes, but we have 12 specific names for notes, and I'm going to show you what they are now. So you have okay, I'm screwing this up quite badly. You have 12 specific notes, but you have 7 kind of main notes. That's your, you probably heard your A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Those are your A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7. Those are your 7 kind of, like your core notes almost. They're the main ones. So that's, let me just write that down for you. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? Can you see that? Cool. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Those are your 7 kind of your core notes. I don't know how else to explain them. Those are, you know, this is just a naming system that we've given to the frequencies of music that we have. Okay, now it's going to get this gets a little bit weird. In between some of the notes, you have other notes, what we call accidentals. We'll get into that in a little bit, but between A, for example, you have between A you have A sharp and B flat, and we denote that by saying A sharp is A with a little raised kind of hash in the superscript, and B flat is a B but with a little kind of like a small b. That's not really a B, but it looks like a B in the superscript. So that's between A and B. Then between B and C, we don't have any of these special notes. You go directly from B to C. So if you're going to go stepwise through the notes, you'd go A, you'd play A, then you'd play A sharp, which is the same thing as B flat, then you'd play B, then you'd play C. There's nothing in between. You can't find a note between B and C. And if you've ever seen a piano, if you have a piano, I'll explain to you how that looks in a moment. Okay, so nothing between B and C. Then between C and D, you have C sharp and D flat. Between D and E, you have D sharp and E flat. Then, okay, so that's, you can see it over there. Then between E and F, again, there's no note that can fall between your E's and your E and your F. Then between F and G, you have obviously F sharp and G flat. And then between G and A, because it goes in a circle. So I know I've written it in order A, B, C, D, E, F, G here, but actually after that G is another A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and before that A is another G, F, E, D, blah, 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 blah. So after the G you have a G sharp, and before the A you have an A flat. So something like this. This is a really good thing to memorize, to write down, so I would really suggest, I'll give you a couple seconds, just copy that down, if you can see it. Okay, cool. Pause if you need to. Take that down, really important, we're going to be working with that quite a bit. Okay, so those are the notes you have in music. Those are the 12 notes. You have your A flat. You have your A flat, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp. Oh, I missed one. I counted funny. But they're 12. They're 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11. What? What is going on here? Oh, okay, wait, sorry. I was counting A flat and G sharp twice, but they're the same thing. So you've got your 12. Okay, so those are the notes that we can work with in music. Now you might be saying, oh, that's weird because I know a guitar can play way more than 12 notes. The thing is though, is that, like I said, it's circular, so it keeps on going. So if you start at say A, and you play all the notes until you get to the next A, what you've done is you've played an octave. An octave is like it's a grouping of 12 notes. It's not specifically from A to A, you can play from C to the next C, that's an octave. It's when you go from one specific note, like a D or a C, and you play up to the very next C, because then you'll see if you play the C. So maybe I should talk about D because that's cooler. So if you play from D to the very next D, you've played an octave. Then from that D you can go to another D and another D and another D and another D. So all these groups of 12 notes between any two notes of the same name, that's called an octave. Now I know I'm throwing a lot at you, I'm not making a lot of sense because I'm explaining it like crap, but it's not like crazy important. If you're getting the general sense of what I'm speaking about, that's a good start. Okay, so that's your octave, is from when you go from D to D, or B to B, or F to F, but specifically the very, very next one that you could possibly play. Okay, now you're going to pick up your guitar. I'm going to show you a little bit how these all relate to each other, because if you can see it on your instrument, it'll help an awful lot. Okay, so pick up your axe. Let me grab a pick. Okay, so I'm going to show you, for example, if you take the open sixth string, right, this note, open sixth string, that is an E. You can then play, if you play each space successively, you'll be playing through all those notes that I showed you. So what you've got is, you've got E as your open, then I said between E and F, there's nothing, there's no other note we can play. So the very next note you can play after E is F, right? Then that's the first space of the sixth string is your F. Then you can play F sharp, the very next space, which is the same thing as G flat. Because then after that you play G in the third space, G sharp in the fourth space, which is the same thing as A flat, A in the fifth space, A sharp in the sixth space, which is the same thing as B flat, B in the seventh space. Then remember, there's nothing between B and C, so the very next note that you play after B must be C. Then from C you have C sharp if you move up one, same thing as D flat, because in the next space, 10 is D. If you play D and you play the very next note you can play after D, going up, is a D sharp, which is the same thing as E flat, which is in the 12th space. So you see we have 13, but like 12 different notes to choose from. So we went from E, we had all the notes in between, and now we're back to E. And you can hear there's a very cool harmonic relationship between the octaves. You can almost hear that it's the same note. There's a really, I don't know how to describe it. Some people have good ears, some people don't have good ears, but even me, who has pretty bad ears, can hear this kind of relationship. So on the guitar, if you play an open string and then you play on the 12th space, that's always playing an octave. You can hear, oh, by the way, I hope I fixed the audio kind of problems. I had to get rid of like all the lows on my guitar. Like it probably sounds fine on the video, but here in my room it sounds really tinny. Like if I have any lows whatsoever coming out of my amp, then it completely, like the webcam mic just gets completely overloaded. But anyway, it should be good now. That's unrelated. So like I was saying, if you play from the open string on any string, and then you play the 12th space, those notes are separated by an octave. Okay, so that hopefully will have cleared it up a bit. Put down your guitar again, because now I need to show you something else with the paper. Okay, those spacings that I showed you, where you're going from one fret to the very next fret, is what we call a half step or a semitone. because if you're going from A to A sharp, it's like going halfway from A to B. So we call it a half step or a semitone. If you now were to play directly from A to B, sorry, you probably can't see. If you were to play directly from A to B, you've now skipped over that, like the A sharp B flat bit. So what we say is you've played a whole tone or a full step or a whole step or any other thing you can possibly think of. So another way to look at it is you can go from A to A sharp, and then from A sharp, which is the same thing as B flat, to B. And from A sharp to B, or B flat to B, is another semitone. So if you go from A to B, you've actually gone a semitone to A sharp, B flat, and then you've gone another semitone or half step from A sharp, B flat to B. So you've gone a whole step. So it makes nice sense. One important, really important, lots of people get confused with this, but this is super important, is that between B and C, even though you're going from one of these special notes, the A, B, C's, D's, E's, from B to C, you're still only going a half step, a semitone, because there's no other note that you can play in between that. So now, if you pick up your guitar again, I can show you what that looks like. On a guitar, a semitone is always going from one space to the very next space on the same string. So for now, we're just focusing on staying on one string. So if we're on the 6th string, the low E, if you go from open to the very next thing that you can play, which would be the first space. So it's from the 0th space, open, to the first space. That's a semitone, because a semitone is the smallest distance that you can move in music. Obviously in terms of with instruments and stuff, because you can always go up like a quarter tone and an eighth tone and stuff like that, but that's not really relevant in what we do so much. So the smallest thing that you can move on guitar is a semitone. It's going from one space to the next space. So from open to first, or first to second. That's a semitone. If you want to play a whole tone, obviously then you just play two semitones. So you skip, you have a gap in between. So say if you're playing G, which is on the third space, and you want to go up a whole tone, then you skip the G sharp and you go directly to A. So you're playing with that gap in between. So that's a whole tone. So it's really, really important to understand the difference between a semitone and a whole tone. And now, if you think of the B, C thing, it's easy to visualize why it's not a full tone on guitar. Because if you have B over here on the 7th space on the 6th string, and you want to play C, C is right next to it on the 8th space. There's no note that you can play in between. You're going from one space to the very next space, which we just define now as a semitone. So it's a semitone. Same thing with E to F. If you play E on the open string and you go to F, it's a semitone, because you're going from the open space to the very next space, which is F. So between E and F, there's nothing. It's a semitone. So these basic concepts, I know I've probably confused the hell out of you, but it is really important that you get a firm understanding of this. If you need to go watch other videos or read up a bit, please do that. The more you understand about music, the better. Okay. Like I said, if you have a piano or if you've seen a piano is a much easier instrument to visualize this kind of thing on. Unfortunately, I don't have one at hand here. But you can picture a piano, or just go like Google search a piano, the piano keys, and you'll get one of those nice pictures of your black keys and your white keys. And you'll see on a piano, the white keys correspond to your A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? The black keys correspond to your A sharp, B flat, C sharp, D, E flat, and everything like that. So you'll see, if you look at a piano, you'll see between some keys there's a black key, between some white keys there's a black key, and between some white keys there's no black key. And those white keys, where it goes directly from one white key to another white key, is obviously your B to C and your E to F. So if you have a piano and you can check it out, that might help you visualize it a bit. Okay, a little bit of, sorry, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, a little bit of terminology quickly. Okay, we call these your A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, your natural notes. Because we haven't done anything to change them. Those are your, it's your A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. There's no other way I can really explain it. Those are your natural notes. If you change them by, say, you're now playing A sharp, we call that an accidental. Your sharps and your flats are your accidentals, and as we'll see a little bit later, naturals can also become accidentals, but that is a bit more involved, and we'll cover that when we get to scales and stuff. But for now, you've got your natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and your accidentals, which is A sharp, B flat, or C sharp, D flat, or E sharp, F, there's nothing between E and F, E, F, D sharp, E flat, or F sharp, G flat, or G sharp, A flat, something like that. Those are your accidentals. So it is, I always think it's important to know some of the terminology. Okay, to finish off now quickly, we're going to do something that is really quite important. So grab your axe again. We're going to look at learning the notes of the guitar. Because obviously, imagine if you're a pianist and you don't know what the notes are, that's no good. I mean, you're going to be useless. So as a guitarist, it's not as important for us to know where the notes are. You'll see a bit later, because guitarists learn more in terms of in patterns and shapes and stuff like that, as opposed to the notes themselves. But it is still important to know where your notes are. Okay, so using what I've showed you there with the, sorry, did I just get a message? Using what I've shown you there in terms of your naturals and stuff, you can now go work out any note that you need to know in here. And there are a couple ways that you can do that. So, say for example, let's just start with the basis for knowing what notes are, is knowing what notes your open strings are. So the sixth string, like I said, is your E, it's your low E. So that note is an E. Obviously you should tune your guitar properly before you start. Okay, the fifth string is an A. The fourth string is a D. The third string is a G. The second string is a B. And the first string is an E. So from that, the E, A, D, G, B, E of the sixth, fifth, fourth, third, second, first string, you can move up to work out what notes you're playing. So say, for example, I wanted to play and know what note is on the seventh space of the third string. I'd say, okay, the third string starts with a G on the open, right? Then from G you go to G sharp, then A in the second space, A sharp in the third space, B in the fourth space, C in the fifth space, remember nothing between B and C, B, C, C sharp in the sixth space, D in the seventh space. You can also streamline it a little bit. Rather than counting up, you can just count the natural notes, for example. So you could go, okay, G in the open, A is obviously your second because you have to go up a whole tone to A, B another whole tone, then C is a semitone, C on the fifth space, then to D on the seventh space. There's another way that you can look at that, and remember I said that the 12th space is your octave notes. So if say the second string we said was B, open is B, if you play it on the 12th space, it's also B. Okay, so what you can also do is you can work backwards from the 12th space. So say you wanted to find out what let's say the 8th fret on the D string is, which is your 4th string. You'd go D is your 12th fret, back a semitone would be C. Which one was I looking at? 8. Okay, so back a semitone would be C. Then C to B is a semitone. Wait, sorry, did I say? Okay, so D is your 12th space, back a whole tone, which is with a space in between, goes to C. Then C to B is a semitone, so you play 9th, and then if you going back from the 9th, a semitone, B flat, because you've gone backwards. That's probably something I also should have explained a while ago, is if you take, say for example, an A, and you play up one space, that's a sharp. If you take A, and you play back one space, that's a flat. So if you have A, and you play up one, it's A sharp. If you have A, and you play back one, that's A flat. It probably makes sense from the drawing stuff. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. Okay, so you don't need to necessarily learn all the notes off by heart. It'll kind of come with time, and if when you're practicing you just make a conscious decision, or you consciously think about, if I show you a little riff or something, then, you know, take that and try to figure out what notes you're playing. Try to name the notes. It'll really help you get a better understanding of where everything is. And the better that you know your fretboard, the easier. If I say, okay, we're playing an E major scale and we're changing the D to a D flat or whatever, then you'll be able to quickly realize what you have to do to play that. Not that that was just messing around. Okay, another thing, if you're playing on the 12th space, or you're playing above the 12th space, everything just repeats like it was for the open strings. So if, say, I'm playing on the 6th string and I'm playing on the 12th space, then the 13th space would be F, E, F, 15th space would be G, 17th space would be A, 19th space would be B, 20th space would be C, 22nd space would be D. So that's a way to help you if you're playing up here above the 12th space and you want to find what your notes are called. That's a good way to help you. Okay, so like I said, not like vital that you go and learn every single note on the fretboard, but it is vital that you learn all the notes on the E and the A string, because you'll see when we get to chords and scales like that and stuff like that, those form the basis for how we identify shapes and scales and stuff like that. So I'll just run through it with you quickly. Okay, so I've done the E string, but let's just do it again. So we have E is open, F, first space, third space is G, fifth space is A, seventh space is B, eighth space is C, 10th space is D, 12th space obviously back to E, 13th space is F, 15th space is G, sorry, there's a bug on my floor, 17th space is A, 19th space is B, 20th space is C, 22nd space is D. Obviously then if you have a 24 fret guitar, then playing on 24 would be back to your E. Okay, now for the A string. So really important that you know those ones. Like if I wake you up in the middle of the night, if I somehow know where you live and I wake you up and I say, okay, what's on the 6th bass of the E string, you can immediately tell me it's A sharp or B flat. Okay, really important, because that'll help you so much in terms of being able to play like simple songs and scales and stuff like that. Okay, so on the A string, which is your 5th string, if you start with the open string, obviously that's A. Then you go up a whole tone, which is your 2nd fret, is now B. Then from B to C is a semitone, so C is on your 3rd space, D is on your 5th space, E is on your 7th space, E and F is a semitone, so F is on your 8th space, F and G is another whole tone, so G is on your 10th space, and G to A is another whole tone, so G, A, and A is back on your 12th, just like I said it would be. Isn't it amazing? I haven't lied to you for a whole lesson. I feel so proud of myself. Okay, anyway, carrying on from there, you have A on the 12th, B on the 14th, C on the 15th, D on the 17th, E on the 19th, F on the 20th, and G on the 22nd fret. If you have a 24th fret guitar, then obviously playing on 24 would then give you back to your A. So I just like to make note that the fret markings are not an indication of where your natural notes are. Sometimes your natural notes will fall on the fret markings, like on the 6th string for example, you have G, A, B, but then C falls not on a fret marking, D falls not on a fret marking. So it is important to remember that these are just a guideline for telling you which fret you're playing. They're not at all in any way telling you whether you're playing a natural note or an accidental note, which is different to a piano, because on a piano you can see if you're playing a black key, you're playing an accidental, you're playing an A sharp or a C sharp or something like that. If you're playing a white note, you're playing an A or a B or a C or a D or an E. Okay, so that's that. Take what I've shown you, learn some of the notes. If you have any questions, if I didn't explain anything very nicely, which could be very likely, because like I said, I haven't done this in ages, and once you kind of understand music theory, you just understand it. It's quite difficult to explain to other people. It's one of those things you just have to sit down and like read as much as you can, watch videos, ask music people about it if you can. So if you have a specific question or anything, put it in the comments, let me know. And next time we're going to be checking out, I don't know what to do. We can either do, okay, actually I know what I'm going to do. Next time I'm going to show you how the notes that I've shown you fit on the stave, because I just briefly showed you the stave. I actually thought I'd be able to get this done a lot quicker than this, but it turns out I can't. So I'll show you how the notes fit on the stave and what accidentals and sharps and everything, sharps and flats and naturals and everything looks like on the stave. And then I'll talk a bit about rhythm. Not in terms of playing rhythm guitar, but in terms of how we, when we're writing in music notation, how we dictate rhythm, how we show rhythm. Yes, that sounds like a plan. Okay, so guys, thanks for watching. Keep, sharing this with people please. If you know any musicians, tell them about these videos, even if they've been playing for a while, because we're going to be, the further along we get, we're going to be getting into some more interesting stuff. I know this is really basic at the moment, but I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, cheers guys.